Sarah, there's a specific report out by Fox that talks about, that says essentially a decision is made to roll back the program by the end of this week, and that there will be provisions allowing Dreamers who are in the country right now to stay until their work authorization expires. Are you specifically denying that report?
No offense to your colleague from Fox News, but I think I'm a little bit better informed than they are in terms of when the White House has made a decision. And as I just said a moment ago, it has not been finalized, and when it is, we will certainly let you know. Hallie.
Just on Glenn, can you at least talk about the timeline here? You've got these states that have said September 5th is when they will begin and continue this court action. That's obviously the Tuesday after Labor Day. So does that mean that some decision will be coming down tomorrow before the holiday weekend? Can you at least talk about the timeline for this for those folks who are wondering what their status is going to be here?
Again, I'm not going to get ahead of something and be presumptuous when a decision hasn't been made. We don't know when the final review is going to be completed, so it would be disingenuous for me to create a false timeline that simply just isn't workable.
Is not, you guys aren't even thinking about
there are a lot of conversations around the timeline and when that has to be made, and again, that hasn't been fully reviewed and vetted and decided.
And just one more on Harvey, Sarah. There's obviously been a huge outpouring of support from people all around the country for the victims of Harvey. You've seen people lining up to volunteer. You've seen people donating tens of millions of dollars. Can you speak to what the president and his family have done regarding donation for Harvey relief personally?
Yes, I can. I had a chance to speak directly with the president earlier, and I'm happy to tell you that he is would like to join in the efforts that a lot of the people that we've seen across this country do, and he's pledging $1 million of personal money to the fund, and he's actually asked that I check with the folks in this room, since you are very good at research and have been doing a lot of reporting into the groups and organizations that are best and most effective in helping and providing aid, and he'd love some suggestions from the folks here, and I'd be happy to take those if any of you have them. But as I said, he'll pledge proudly $1 million of his own personal money to help the people of both Texas and Louisiana.
Yesterday, the president went to Missouri to push for tax reform. He has said, the administration has said that they'd like to see a bill before the House of Representatives in September. But there's differences between where the administration is and where House GOP leaders are. Do you still expect that to happen in September?
As we've said before, this is going to be a big priority for the administration, certainly moving through the fall. The biggest part is that we make sure that we get it right and that we provide tax relief to middle-class America and that we help Americans across the board. That's the goal, and if we can do that by September, that would be great. Blake?
Sarah, picking up on that, with the president hitting the road yesterday, he made it seem as if this should be a simple bipartisan fix. However, Democrats are saying that there should not be tax relief for those who are the wealthiest 1% of earners. Does the president believe that the wealthiest 1% deserve tax relief?
The president laid out clearly what his big priorities were yesterday. I'll be glad to repeat those. Permanently reducing tax rates, encouraging entrepreneurs to invest, simplifying the process, incentivizing American companies to bring back jobs and profits. The president is focused on helping all Americans across the board. The biggest priority he has is on helping middle-class Americans and making sure more of those people keep more of their money.
Does the White House think working with Democrats on this is reasonable or likely? I mean, they're already laying down the marker for where they stand. You just said for all Americans, presumably that includes the top 1%.
I would love for Democrats to want to help all Americans. I don't know why they would ever want to be against that. Certainly helping more Americans have more money that they worked hard to earn in their pocket. I don't know anybody that would want to be against that. So hopefully they will be reasonable and want to come to the table. Matthew.
Thanks, Sarah. I have a tax reform question, but first just quickly about that charitable donation. Will that be coming from Trump personally as opposed to the Trump Foundation or the Trump organization?
I know that the president, he said he was personally going to give. I don't know the legal part of exactly that, but he said his personal money, so I'd assume that comes directly from him.
And on tax reform, if I may, Secretary Mnuchin said earlier that the administration is going to release a blueprint on tax reform that will then go to Congress. When can we expect that? How much detail will that go into? And how is that a change from letting Congress take the lead on actually drafting the legislation?
Again, as both members of the administration, the president have said, our job is to lay out the core principles, the primary pillars that we want to see in tax reform. It's Congress's job to legislate. So we want to work through that process and allow them to actually do their jobs. We're going to do our jobs and lead the conversation, set the table, set the priorities, and let them do their job and legislate, get it passed so that the president can sign it. John Decker.
See that blueprint?
I think we've already been laying out a lot of those principles. That's the foundation, and we'll continue to add to that. John.
Thanks, Sarah. Is this push for tax reform the priority for the president and the administration right now? Have you put the repeal and replace effort to the side for the moment to focus exclusively on your tax reform proposals?
As the White House, I don't think you ever get to exclusively focus on only one issue. It's certainly one of the top priorities for the administration moving into the fall. But as we've said many times before, we can walk and chew gum at the same time, and we plan to push through a lot of different things throughout the fall. John?
Just one thing, Sarah, if I may. On repeal and replace, as you know, you received no Democratic support in either the House or the Senate. As far as tax reform is concerned, are you expecting a different result? Do you think you can get Democrats to support some sort of legislation that comes forward from both houses of Congress?
As I said a minute ago, I would certainly hope so. I don't know why any Democrat would be against wanting to provide tax relief for hardworking Americans, particularly those in the middle class. I think it would be a very sad and a big mistake. Catherine? Oh, walking back.
Today in an interview said, was asked about plans to put Harriet Tubman on a $20 bill. He was vague in his answer. During the campaign, the president called this pure political correctness. Is the administration reversing those plans to change the $20 bill?
I'm not aware of any policy change. I'd certainly have to check into that. Peter?
On DACA.
Sorry, I promised I'd come back to you next.
Okay. On DACA, in February, the president said he would treat dreamers with heart. Does the president stand by his statement to treat dreamers with heart?
Absolutely. The president stands by his statement. Right now, this is currently under review, both from a legal standpoint primarily, and until that review is complete, again, as I answered before, we don't have anything to add further on that front.
Would rescinding DACA be treating dreamers with heart?
Again, I'm not going to get into a back and forth until a decision's been made on this front.
Quickly, the
Hold on,
retaliation
let me come
today.
to him, and if I have time,
I'll do it right after.
Peter.
I'll go right after Chip then.
Shifting to Russia for a moment, the decision to the
See,
announcement
he jumped
today.
in there for you.
The announcement
Teamwork.
today by the State Department on closing 3 facilities in this long tit for tat that has been going on with Russia. A lot of analysts now say that relations between the U.S. and Russia are at the lowest point since the Cold War. Do you agree with that? And if so, whose fault is it?
Look, right now, we're requiring the Russian government to close its consulate general in San Francisco, a trade annex in Washington, D.C., and a trade annex in New York City. These closures have to be completed by the September 2nd. We've taken a firm and measured action in response to Russia's unfortunate decision earlier this year. We want to halt the downward spiral, and we want to move forward towards better relations. We'll look for opportunities to do that, but we also want to have equity in the decisions, and anything beyond that. I would refer you to the State Department.
Are those relations worse than they've been since the Cold War, or at least in decades?
I don't think so, but
Came in determined to improve relations with Russia.
look, and
they've just
as
gone
I just
downhill.
said, we're going to look for opportunities to do that, but we're also going to make sure that we make decisions that are best for our country. Right, go ahead.
Sarah, thanks. Senators Grassley and Graham revealed today that they have evidence suggesting that former FBI Director Comey made a decision to not charge Hillary Clinton several months before the investigation actually wrapped up and before they interviewed Hillary Clinton. Does the president know about this, and does he believe that that adds weight to his decision to fire Comey?
I'm not sure if he is aware of that revelation, but if it is as accurate as they say it is, I think that would certainly give cause and reason that Jim Comey was not the right person to lead the FBI, and hopefully all of your colleagues will follow suit in covering that story. Zeke.
Thanks, Sarah. Just following, going back to tax reform real quick. You mentioned the president laid out a bunch of core principles. One of those, presumably, the effects of whatever the tax plan is on the budget. Has the White House taken a position on whether the tax plan needs to be revenue neutral, or is the White House willing to accept a tax plan that would that would essentially raise the deficit. The president's talked a lot about the deficits over the course of his campaign in the White House. So is he laying down the marker there?
Not at this time. I don't have any further announcement on that front.
The president has made clear that he believes all options are on the table when it comes to North Korea, and has seemed to indicate that the military option is certainly among them. But is negotiating still on the table?
Absolutely. All includes all. So I think that would certainly include diplomatic, economic, and military options.
Sorry, just one quick follow-up, just as we are getting closer to Friday. Can you tell us whether the president still has confidence in Gary Cohn?
Yes, the president is working hand in hand with Gary and the rest of his team on tax reform. As I've said several times earlier today, that's a big priority for the administration moving into the fall, and Gary is an integral member of the team leading that effort. April.
Sarah, on the issue of repeal and replace, since this president is so dead set on trying to make sure that he replaces and repeals Obamacare, what's happening with the website? Is there still active enrollment on that website?
As far as I know, I'm not aware of any reason that it's not, but I'd have to certainly check into that. I'm not checking into the Obamacare website daily, so I'd have to look into that.
You're not actively encouraging people, you're more so saying repeal and replace?
I think that everybody in the country knows that Obamacare is collapsing and that something still needs to be done, and the administration is still very much committed to putting a healthcare system in place that actually works, because we know Obamacare doesn't. It's not sustainable. So yes, we're continuing to move forward and look for ways to help all Americans receive better care.
HBCU conference, is it possible, I asked last time, can you give us the list, because we're still hearing more and more from other colleges and universities in the HBCU community who are saying they're absolutely not coming, and you say it's at capacity and you have a waiting list. Is there any way that you can share some of those names?
Yeah, I think this, the Department of Education is housing that, but again, I will try to look into that. I meant to do that last week. Thanks so much, guys. Happy to have a great day.